What's up, everybody? You already know who it is. It's Carlos, your friendly neighborhood fire sprinkler guy. So today, I'm over here with Mr. Vince Powers with the NFSA. He's an instructor.
Hey, how you doing all? I'm, as Carlos said, I'm Vince Powers with NFSA. I'm the ITM specialist, and I get to run around the country and talk about 25, among other things.
Being an instructor, and for what you've seen here in your experience, what is some of the common mistakes that you see inspectors make?
I think number one is a lot of times inspectors are going outside of their scope of work, outside of what NFPA 25 says, outside of what their contract says. So like they'll cite things they shouldn't be citing, such as like installation flaws and recalls and stuff like that. And a lot of that just comes, in my opinion, comes from just learning from someone else. We've all, I don't care what industry you're in, but especially this industry, we learn from somebody else. We learn from the person we were put into a vehicle with from day one, and they teach us, and then we teach that to somebody else, but we never open a book to actually read it and learn it. So I think that's one of the biggest things.
Why now is continuing education more important now than ever? And I've seen, because here, this great program the NFSA and the FSA has put together with AHJs and contractors in the same room, which I think is magnificent. How do you feel it's more important now than ever?
Well, I kind of think it goes back to almost to my last answer, is like, again, we don't open a book. We learn from somebody else, right? So we never opened a book to actually read what's in it. So we're always learning the incorrect information. So, and the standards are forever changing, right? So right now, Florida just went into, I think it was last year, they went into the 2020 edition of 25. January 1, they're going to go into the 23 edition. We are already starting the 2029 edition, right? So it's always changing, and knowing what's changing and how it's changing affects us, especially in the ITM world. And it's not frequencies. Very seldom is it a frequency that actually changes in 25. It's words. And words are what gets us hung up in court. And if we don't know what we should or shouldn't be citing, or how to cite it, or some of the words that's changed, that is detrimental to the work we're performing.
Good point. And on that, with continuing education, I mean, I've tried to do it, and I encourage my guys to try to do this when they're out here, is to sometimes ask questions, because you may be reading something, but the way you interpret it might not be correct. So I think, how do you feel when these CEUs actually not just sitting here and not asking any questions or creating any dialogue? How important is communication, creating dialogue, to actually find out if you really do understand it correct, if you're really doing the correct inspection?
I think it's imperative. I 100% agree. So I teach a 3-day class down here in Florida, and it's a prep class, essentially, right? I teach you how to go through the book, and I always say that, if you just sit back and listen to me, you're not going to learn anything, right? You have to get involved. You have to ask these questions, and I agree. You may read something and interpret it differently than I do, and just because I interpret it one way doesn't mean that I'm right. But one of the benefits we have with NFSA is we sit on every one of these committees. I personally sit on 25, so I know, most of the time, I know the intent of what that section is trying to say, and I can explain it that way. So asking these questions is what really helps these people or these inspectors to understand the intent rather than how they interpret it.
Sweet. With the training going on, technology changing and evolving, how important is the hands-on training, whether you're an inspector who's beginning or just out on the field as a tech?
I think again, it's imperative. I think it should be phases, right? Especially for green inspectors or people who just come in. I think if you start them off on the right foot and take them down a path, they will be exceptional inspectors in the future. But it has to be a process, right? They have to know the basics. What's a sprinkler? What's the flow? Things like that. And then I think they need to learn how to use NFPA 25 the right way, or any standard for that matter, rather than just assuming that the person you're working with is telling you the truth. Look up the answers. If the more you know about what's in the book, the better the inspector. And then you take everything you're learning that's in the book and you go out into the hands-on side of it and apply it. And the more that you can learn about what's in the book, the better you can apply it in the field. and there's sections in that book that, says that everything's not practical or possible. So, you have to be able to make those judgment calls when you're out there in the field, but you can't make them unless you know what's in the book. So again, I think it's just a process to go through.
And building a good team, it's going to require that sacrifice, that training to constantly be doing, and whether it's for CEUs or not, in general, continuing education.
Correct.
If you feel is important.
Yeah.
And I maybe you might agree with me on this point, I don't know, but I also feel that sometimes when you at least provide the opportunity for that constant training, you're actually activating this person's want and inspiring and motivating them to continue possibly be a better person and learn, because I think it's one of these blue collar trades that kind of people forget, that you just go in, hard work and do your heavy pipe, heavy lifting. It's a little bit more than that. I think that if you really like it and you enjoy it, and even if you start learning and studying it, it's going to open up your comprehension a little bit more on the systems, possibly, and be a good contributor to the industry. Because that's, I think, what we do is life safety. It goes from design, fabrication, installation, inspection. Everything has to be on point for these systems to work correctly, correct?
Oh, absolutely. You're 100% correct about that. It's the more you know, the more you learn, right? We all, I don't know about we all, but most of us do want to continue to learn. If we are treated, I always say, if we're treated like mushrooms, then that's where we lose everything. We lose our energy, we lose our desire, right? So if we're just shoved into a corner and in the dark and just keep having stuff put on top of us, we kind of give up, we kind of quit. Mm-hmm. And it is it's a balance for owners, because if I go and put all this money and investment into this inspector, and then he gets all this education from me and decides to leave, well, there's nothing I can do about that. But I can't do that to the next guy, because this guy, I can't not train this guy because this one left. It's just, unfortunately, it's just part of the business. But hopefully you find that balance. An inspector and a business owner or a contractor, it's a two-way street. It has to be a two-way street, or it'll never work. But the more you learn, the more you desire, the better you are for you and for your company.
I completely agree with you on that. Now, with all these changes, AI, a lot of software, because when I got into the industry, there was no software. I mean, at all. We were the software. Soft was if you had soft hands.
Yeah.
That's software, So now with all these changes, where do you see this industry in 5 or 10 years?
That's a hard one. I actually wrote an article not long ago, but it was 50 years or I was at 2050. 2050 was the article, and I did a pretty deep dive into where that's going to go, and I think AI is going to play a really big role in things. But I think our routine, just checking boxes for inspections, which is really what we do now for the most part, which is unfortunate, but it's kind of what we do. I think a lot of that's going to go away, and I think we're going to start, based on AI, we'll be able to collect more data and history and things like that, and we're going to be able to start predicting when things are going to fail. And we're going to be able to do deeper dives. There's going to be more and more tools that come along, like, scanning of pipe. Can we look through the pipe to see, right?
I've been seeing some of that stuff.
To see what's going on. And I think that's going to be where the future is. And a lot of people are worried about, the remote inspections and the remote testing and the AI. But I think in the long run, it's going to make us safer. It's going to make us more efficient as an industry. There's still going to be stuff that has to be done hands-on.
Yeah.
I mean, let's face it, we typically only do annual testing anyway.
Right.
So we're still going to be doing that. It's just now a lot of this stuff's going to be done from a computer instead of spending 3-4 hours a day on the road. We'll go open up a computer and do 3-4 inspections through a computer. And I think we're still a little further away than 10 years on that.
Right.
But I do believe it's coming.
Well, I do agree with you, because everything does change. Life safety always has to keep adapting to our lifestyle, to different needs and construction material. This stuff with lithium batteries is, is pretty interesting too. So, I'm very motivated and excited to see this industry grow, and where I've seen it come from, because it's in an industry that it's so into the future, but it's been around since 1864. The 1800s, fire protection has been around, and where we've come to this day, I think is magnificent. And definitely, Vince, let me get at least a link to that article, because I think everybody needs to read up on that. And again, thank you for taking the time to sit down with me and answer a couple questions.
Yeah.
One last question: how do you feel What is your take on what we're doing social media wise, if you've seen our videos, and what the angle is out here?
Again, I think it's kind of an well, it is. It's an education piece, right? And as you said, or we talked about, education is imperative. It's, we don't know what we don't know, right? So again, if I'm not opening a book and I'm not reading, or I don't have someone to ask questions of, or sometimes even I still learn. Just I'll get on, some of the YouTubes or podcasts and just listen, and I may learn something here or there that I didn't learn that now I can pass on to someone else. And that kind of is the same way with your viewers. If there's something they didn't know, or if they had questions that maybe someone internally in their company couldn't ask, and now they have this, and they can take that information and maybe research it and train someone else the right way. So I think it just, again, just with technology, it just, it makes us better in the long run. Now, obviously, we have to weed out some of the things that are maybe not quite correct. There's some of that out there, unfortunately, but I think even most of the people, they intend to do well. It's just a matter of how do we, I always say trust but verify.
Yeah.
Trust the information you
But
get
verify.
and then go verify it.
Absolutely. That helps keep things 100% of the time, I guess.
Yeah,
Right?
absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you,
Absolutely.
Mr. Powers.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank
you. Have a good one.
You as well.